Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
It looks like you're outside. It's raining here in Connecticut.
Yeah, it's a little breezy here, so hopefully can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great, and reception's really good. Your face is very clear for me.
Okay, super.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm out in our new vineyard, which is Earl's place.
Okay.
So would you like to see what it looks like?
I would love it.
Okay, so this is a new app for me, so bear with me,
No
okay?
worries. That's the fun of it.
I think I know where I have to push. There we go.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is Earl's place.
You're sideways, Nancy. I don't know if that's your phone or there you go.
Is that better?
Better, yes.
I was hoping you'd get more of a view, but I guess not with this one.
Yeah, it's a square regardless.
Okay, so this is actually, you can see Seneca Lake. We're on the northwestern shore of Seneca. And this is our new vineyard property, which we just were able to purchase from our neighbor. Actually, his children, after he passed away, he was a good friend of ours. And his name was Earl Miller. And so we have named this Earl's Place.
Oh.
And yeah, he was awesome. He was a great guy. One of the first people that we really got to know when we moved here from California.
Mm-hmm.
So last year we planted the last part of the plantings, which was Zweigelt, which is down close to the lake.
Mm-hmm.
And then as we're moving up the hill here, we go through Pinot Noir, which is actually the Jackson clone from the Jackson experimental plot up in the Sierra foothills. I don't know if you know the backstory on that or not.
No, but if we have time, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, sure. There's plenty to talk about there. And then we're in the Blaufränkisch here.
Okay.
And then as we go up the hill, can you see how we're going uphill here?
Yeah.
It's hard for me to see because the lighting's not very good here, so just tell me if something's not working. All right, this is at the top of the plot, there's Cab Franc, which is our first Cab Franc. But as you can see, the vineyard is planted on a reasonable slope. And there's a logic behind that because this is a cool, or shall I say, cold climate region.
Yeah.
So anywhere we grow grapes, we have to have airflow, right? Air drainage.
Okay.
And especially this time of year when we have the potential frost, which we're experiencing here over the next few days, it's really quite good to have airflow so you don't have cold air sitting around the vines and creating problems. But you can also see that we have a wind machine here.
Oh, okay.
And we use that too when we start to see problems with extreme cold and we have young buds that are pushing. We'll actually start using the wind machine for a certain period of hours right at the early morning. To make sure we don't have damage and keep the air flowing and try to keep the air around the vines warmer.
Okay.
This is Bueller.
Hi, Bueller.
So if you see me getting tugged around, that is why, because he's got a little bit of strength behind him.
Okay.
But he's pretty much my vineyard assistant and my winery assistant at this point. So
I love it.
we're just out here hunting for woodchucks, trying to make sure those varmints don't get into the vineyard area.
Wow. Okay. I want to back up a little bit and tell us your story, who you are. I have it pinned down here, your name and your winery, but just introduce yourself and tell us who you are and how you got there.
Sure. You want me to turn this around?
Yeah, turn it around, and you can show us back and forth if you go back to the vines, but we'll see your face, maybe with the lake in the background or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. So I've been working with wine and grapes in the wine industry for probably around 35 years. So Michael and I are transplants from California, and I actually started my career in grapes at UC Davis. I was accepted in the PhD program with Dr. Carol Meredith, who has since retired to her own vineyard project with her husband called Legier Meredith. And I worked with her in her lab and got my PhD in grape genetics, grape physiology, kind of biochemistry type stuff, theologies. And then I was hired directly out of graduate school when I got my PhD to start a new program for a very small family winery, I'm just kidding, in Modesto, California called Inge Gala Winery. And so I started up with them in the mid-90s when they had just invested in their Gallo of Sonoma property. And they were really keen to, look at quality improvement and create a whole new program around using knowledge to improve their process and to improve their products. And so I was with them for 12 years and worked my way up the food chain. I started this program. I had a number of people in the department, and I was promoted to vice president. And, that's great, but there's also a downside to it, and that is that you're not really growing grapes and making wine and touching things anymore.
Right.
I had an amazing crew of people, just amazing. And they were doing a great job. And my job was really to, delegate and to try to make sure they had the budget that they needed to do the work they needed to do to keep raising the bar for the company. Mm-hmm. But somewhere along the line, I just kind of lost my way. And I felt really kind of lost, like I really didn't know what I was doing anymore in some ways. And so I decided that I need to get back to the basics. And so we wanted to find a piece of property, my husband and I, where we could go back to personal touch and really own the project from the very beginning. This property that we bought, which is now close to 50 acres, which keeps us really busy.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
When we bought it, it was all woods. And so we went about designing the vineyard. We spent a great deal of time designing the vineyard and what we wanted to put into it and what clones we wanted to use. And now fast forward 14 years later, here we are.
Okay, 14.
Yeah, so when we were looking, we wanted to find a place where we could get in and kind of start our own thing. And we looked at a lot of regions in the United States because we wanted to stay domestic. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to do this on our own dime. We wanted to just be able to do it with our own money, not have to bring in a bunch of big investors and really, really own it. Mm-hmm. And so, we looked at places like Idaho and New Mexico. Obviously, the West Coast states were really out of our reach already financially if we wanted a decent piece of property as far as size was concerned. We really wanted to make a portfolio of wines, not just one wine. So at that time, I did a lot of work with Cornell, and I was going back every couple of years and looking at things and how people were kind of looking at growing grapes. And I started to see people kind of figuring it out, what to grow, how to grow it, how to make the wine. And the area, that those years ago was still so young and so vibrant, and there was so much energy. And the people around here, you could just feel it. People wanted to team together and to work together and raise the bar for this region. And it was just really compelling. It was compelling because it was a place where we could go in with our own funding and really be a part of a community. Mm-hmm. And to develop the future and be a part of the future for that area. And so now we're here, and we've been here for 14 years, and man, it's amazing. It's like a revolution.
I was going to ask, how did you, I guess you answered it because it's compelling, but was it the soil, the lake, the people? It's a big decision about where to go. And could you foresee the changes it's made in just 14 years?
I was hoping. I was hoping that we would start to really get some momentum. Mm-hmm. And it really, what was compelling was the community. Yeah. And the spirit of the community. The potential was obviously here to work with soils and climate that I had never really experienced before. All my previous experience was in a hot, dry climate, right? And most of the projects we did internationally, like in Australia and New Zealand, they also were still relatively warm climate. And so, coming here and tasting the wines, it's very old school here, right? You've been here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the style of wines, there's this beautiful acid spine, but still really good ripeness. And it's just a nice, delicate balance of structure and complexity. Yeah. And it's very unique and very typical of Finger Lakes. Like, it's a style that you can only make here. Yeah. It's very special. Yeah. And so initially when I got here, we were all kind of like wondering, you know, what direction to go with the winemaking and the viticulture. But really, if you're just patient, like this was a new vineyard for me, and I wasn't really quite sure what to expect, and new varietals for me. I really had never worked with Riesling. I'd never gotten my chance on Riesling, especially cool climate Riesling. And so it took me a while to get my bearings, right? And now I think if you're just patient and you just listen and watch what's happening, you can really make stylistically unique wines. And we need to celebrate the things we can do. There are certain things, you know, certain varieties maybe we shouldn't try that take a lot more heat to get fully ripe, and take a lot more time. It's like, well, maybe we shouldn't be looking at things like that. Maybe we should embrace the things that we can do and that we can do well, right? And celebrate that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think we are doing that as a community, you know, and it's great.
For sure. Can you just give kind of a bird's eye view of what the Finger Lakes is? There's some people on here from France who might not know the region and why it works even though it's cold.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's a great point. Maybe I should say something about that, right? So we are a pretty unique terroir because we're a very high latitude growing region that could sustainably grow vinifera. And really the thing that we have going for us is our close proximity to these large bodies of water. And it's not just the Finger Lakes themselves, right? Because you can see I'm going to turn it around here.
Yeah.
This is an enormous lake, all right? It's 30 miles long, all right? And this is one of a number of lakes up here. And it's so deep, this lake is so deep that it hasn't frozen since the early 1900s, all right? And that holds a lot of warmth, all right? So the lakes actually suck up a lot of heat during the summertime, and they hold it. And then when it gets cold, and you have that temperature differential, they start to release it. And it's really that aspect that allows us to sustainably grow vinifera year after year, and so economically sustainable as well.
How far does that affect work? Like how far, literally like a mile, half a mile from the lake can you grow grapes?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't pinpoint it to exact mileage.
Okay.
It's more of a combination of your proximity to the lake and your elevation to the lake.
Okay.
So the higher you go up away from the lakes and the further you go away, the less likely it is that you can sustain vinifera. And so basically what you'll see is there's a fringe around each lake, around the boundary of each lake, where you're going to see vinifera. And then as you start to go up the hill, higher elevation, right, because the whole area is sloped, as you go up the hill and away from the lakes, the vineyards will transition from vinifera to hybrids, and then at the top where the ridge is, you'll see native grapes.
Okay, that's something most people haven't had experience with. Can you talk about hybrid and the native grapes and what you're doing with them, or if you're doing something?
Actually, I'm not working with any hybrids or native grapes. I'm working strictly with vinifera, and our vineyard, you know, most of the fruit, I'd say 98% of the fruit that I work with is from my husband's estate here, from our estate, my husband's work, and we grow only vinifera. Okay. But there is an awakening of a number of individuals who are working with hybrids now and native grapes.
Yeah, you see more and more of that. So can you tell us what grapes you grow on what soils, and then what wines you make? Sure.
So I make a plethora of wines. Because it's fun, you know. One of the nice things about owning your own winery and your own vineyard is that you can do what you want to do. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
So we have become more and more obsessive with bubbles. And so I kind of do, what would be considered standard winemaking style wines, but I also do some more kind of experimental projects. I like to tinker. You know, I do have a PhD. It's like you can't just give that up.
Exactly.
And, you know, this region, because it's a cool climate, the the heart of this region was sparkling.
Okay.
Many years ago, I think around Prohibition, I'm trying to remember the exact years, but we had a very strong culture of winemaking here, mostly with hybrids, but it was around Champagne. And we had a number of French families that spent some time here. Veuve Clicquot, Fournier, Roederer, they were all here.
Oh, wow.
And Fournier did a partnership with a winery here called Taylor. And so there's a lot of heritage of sparkling here. And for a while, we've gone away from that. But I really feel that that's kind of at the core of who we are as far as our climate and our soils are. And so a lot of us are going back to sparkling. So I make Pétillant Naturel, and right now I'm making, well, I'm making like 3 pet nets now. One is Riesling, one's Chardonnay, a Chardy pet net, and I'm also making a rosé pet net out of Pinot Noir. And in still wines, the largest red production we have is Pinot. So I also make rosé from Pinot Noir. And I make still wine from Pinot Noir. Very cool climate, not jammy, very restrained, earthy. I would still say like something more familiar to people who drink older style, old world wines.
Okay.
And then we also work with my background for all the R&D work I did previously. I worked with a lot of kind of unusual varieties back in the mid 90s. When we as farmers in California knew that the climate was changing, actually, in the 90s. And
That's
so
crazy to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, my dog is got a mind of his own here. And so we, the issue was, it's getting a lot hotter and drier in California, especially in the Central Valley where, the vast majority of grapevines are grown in California. And it's like, well, maybe we shouldn't be growing Riesling and Chardonnay in this kind of a climate. Maybe we should be looking to hotter, drier climates and testing those varieties. So we put an experimental block together to look at varietals from other regions of the world and to look for them for fit for the hotter, drier climate. And so I think the Vineyard's probably bigger than mine, the one I have right now. And it was an experimental project, but, Gala, right?
Yeah.
So we looked at a number of varietals that really were a good fit, especially when we made experimental wines and tested them out with sensory and winemakers. Things like Bernarda, Aleatico, Tintacal, Touriga Francesa, Tempranillo, and now if you look at some of the wines, the red wines coming out of Lodi, you'll see that is blended in with those wines, which is fabulous, and it makes perfect sense. Some of the varieties that I worked with in that project, man, I tasted the wines and it was like, no, this is not good. This does not belong in a hot, dry climate, right? It's like, no. But when we started looking at Finger Lakes, which is kind of the exact opposite as far as viticulture is concerned, and you look at the heritage of these varieties, it's like, hey, this makes perfect sense to try out experimentally for this area. So since the beginning, we have been planting kind of what you would consider more unusual reds. I think they're not that unusual anymore. They've picked up. So we grow Dornfelder here, which is a German red. We grow Blaufränkisch, which is becoming more and more of a touchstone for me. I love that variety and what it does here in our vineyard. We just planted Zweigelt, and we just planted our first Cab Franc a couple of years ago, which is really the last thing to be fully ripe and pick. It's the last thing we bring in. Most of these reds actually come in before I'm finished picking Riesling, which is great.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, there's a reason why they're grown in shorter, cooler growing seasons. We also grow Teraldigo and we grow Lagrein, which are varietals from the Italian Alps or from the Tyrol or Trentino area. And obviously they're lower alcohol examples and they're a bit leaner and a bit earthier and a little bit higher acidity than you would see from the really warmer climate that you see in the floor in Trentino. I'm wondering if I'm missing something here. Oh, and we grow Chardonnay, of course. Yeah. I think that's everything.
Who?
So we make a lot of, yeah, we
No,
make a lot of
no.
red varieties too from those. And I'm also making, now that the vineyard's fully mature, I'm making a red blend, which is an estate blend, which is called Rebel with a Cause. And it's a composition of Blaufränkisch, Teroldego, and Lagrein.
Okay.
And I think it's probably the most unusual, but perfectly matched wine that we make at Red Tail Ridge, as far as our brand. Yeah.
So that sweet wine that we tasted together that blew me away, is that every year or just in certain cases?
Oh, Noble Rot.
Yeah.
Yeah, Noble Rot. No, you cannot. Well, we don't. Mother Nature has to play a role in this. All right.
Yeah.
So we don't get perfect, optimal conditions for high quality Noble Rot every year. You know, we do have weather, we do have moisture, we do have the potential, but we try to stay on top of it. But there are certain years where I walk the vineyard and I see really nice opportunity, meaning that I start to see components or fragments of Noble Rot in certain sections of the vineyard that I can see are going to develop into something really interesting. And that, the last time that happened, well, the first time that I did that was in 2012, made a Baron Auslese from whole clusters, 100% botrytized, and then hand harvested and pressed off and very slow cold fermentation. And the last time I was able to do it was in 2018. So between 2012, we really didn't have the best conditions for Noble Rot. And of course, for us, we can't force it. You know, we try to work with what we're given from Mother Nature.
And then I worked in sort of, I mean, it was kind of casual fine dining, but I never found a place for pet nat in general. Where do you see people drinking pet nat? Is it like a beach wine? Is it dinner? It's great at Thanksgiving, so anywhere it's terrible, but who's drinking pet nat? Where are you selling it to?
Oh, wow. Okay. So pet nat is a state of mind.
That's the best answer I've gotten. Elaborate.
You know, I mean, pet nat is just a frivolous, okay, I'm the winemaker here. It's like, pet nat is just for fun, okay?
Like
it's just a frivolous, just a fun distraction from your day. You know, don't take it seriously, really.
Yeah.
It's just for fun, people. And I know that it's become a lot more popular. I mean, when I started making pet nat in 2012, there were very few pet nats on the market. I mean, the only things I could get to do any research at that time were from the Loire Valley.
Oh,
there wasn't hardly anything domestically. I think is it Dunkin' Goat?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I think Dunkin' Goat had one, and then the folks on the other side of the lake were doing one as well. Yeah, but there weren't very many examples. But now I feel like they're everywhere, right?
Yeah,
they're
absolutely.
incredibly popular. And in my case, I really love making traditional method sparkling. You know, extended tirage,
Right.
and extra brut, like low dosage, really the precision, the discipline of making real champagne style sparkling. I gravitate to that. But who can wait for 4 or 5 years to drink bubbles, right?
Right.
So while I'm waiting for my traditional method to fully mature, I drink pet nat. And it pairs perfectly with bugles and potato chips.
100%.
You can have it with Pop-Tarts in the morning. I mean, it's just there. It's just approachable.
I like that answer. Would you mind showing us again where you are? There's some people that joined in here, and I just want them to see this stunning view you have of the lake.
Oh, sure. Here, I'm going to turn it around. Here we go. Oh, sorry, I keep turning it sideways.
Okay.
So this is Seneca Lake.
And you're on which side?
We are on the northwestern shore, and we're up more towards the Geneva area. Okay.
Right.
Like if this is the north, this is facing north here, and you can see on the other side of the ravine. Can you see that? That's our other vineyard.
Oh, okay.
That's our estate vineyard, the first plantings of our estate vineyard. And you can see the slope on that too. And then last year, can you see the irrigation pond we put in?
Not quite. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we're step by step, as we can afford it, we're trying to improve the vineyard area. So Seneca is probably the largest and deepest lake in the Finger Lakes. And then I was going to tell you guys that the other reason why we can grow vinifera at this high latitude is because we have that influence from the Great Lakes. Because we're southeast of all those huge, large bodies of water.
Right.
And so, they actually give off, our winter weather has to go over those lakes before it comes to us.
Oh,
right?
Right.
And so all winter long, that cool air is passing over the Great Lakes before it gets to us. And that's how we end up with lake effect snow, and they end up with lake effect snow. But that's also, warming our atmosphere and our climate before it gets to us. Is that helping?
That's awesome. Thank you.
It's kind of hard for me to see because
yeah, the glare. You have glare. No, we can see it. That's great. And
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. Can you remind me of your viticulture practices? Because when we met, it was we were talking about Jane Anson's book that she mentioned you in about the world of natural wine. What are your viticulture practices?
Yeah. So we are. You want me to turn this back around again?
Sure.
Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah.
There we go. All right. So we are not certified organic and we are not certified biodynamic. We are sustainable and we do practice integrated pest management. And because of my more technical background, we are looking at more kind of, I wouldn't say experimental, but new approaches to managing diseases. Michael and I, one of the reasons why we're not certified in those areas is because the primary control method for disease pressure, like the kind of disease pressure that we get here in the Finger Lakes, is using copper. And copper is a natural compound or a natural molecule, but the problem is that it can also be very toxic. And unlike things like sulfur that you use, which volatilize over time, copper will accumulate in your soil profile and will start to create issues for your soil microbes. And we have very heavy soils here with clay-based soils, and so porosity and water penetrance is a big deal for us. So we try very hard to keep a very diverse population of microbes and a decent health level for them. And so we've chosen not to use copper. So instead, we're looking at, basically the primary way that we prevent is with handwork. So we do a lot of cane thinning, we do shoot positioning, we do a lot of leaf plucking and thinning out around the canopy of where the clusters are in the fruit zone, and we also do cluster thinning when necessary to try to improve the airflow because we get a really strong airflow going towards the lake from the top of the hill.
Wow, that's fascinating. Well, I'm kind of at the half-hour mark, so I'm trying to keep them within a range, but I could listen to you all day. You're so smart, and you're such a good educator. You make everything very understandable. So thank you for your time. Do you want to say anything before we go to people?
All I want to say is that I know it's a tough time for everyone, and I just want to say that my heart goes out to all my folks that may be watching that are in the restaurant and in the service industry, and we just all have to kind of hunker down and try to get through this as a community. And I hope to see everyone when this is all over. I hope to have a glass of wine with everybody.
You're very kind to say that, but and I appreciate you taking your time, because this is really, the project is for my friends who are stuck at home and indoors like this. So for you to take the time and get outside and show us around, it means a lot. So thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel in many ways we have a lot of work here, and that work actually keeps us focused and kind of acts as a good distraction for us. And I know a lot of people don't have that, so.
You're very kind to think of us. Thank you so much, Nancy. It's really good to see you again. It's funny how you connect over the internet like this, isn't it? It's really great to see you.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I don't think, yeah, I think it's a great way to keep in touch. Thank goodness we have social media and the internet, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So it's good to see you. We'll talk soon, I hope. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.